This week I'm interviewing Faby Lineberger. She is an athlete I coached earlier this year towards the Never Summer 60K, a mountainous race in Colorado. She didn't actually finish due to DQ, and I'll leave that story for the podcast itself. But we got together to talk training and nutrition and how you train for a mountainous race in Colorado when you live in Virginia, and what it looks like to adapt your training when your life gets a little hectic. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Eat Well, Sleep Great, Run Far podcast. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm here to help you go farther, faster, and longer without injuries, gut problems, or giving up your favorite foods. This week on the podcast, I have Faby Lineberger. She is an athlete I've worked with for a couple months, and she recently ran a very difficult race in Colorado, the Never Summer 60K. And she and I are just going to talk a little bit about training and what that looks like to get yourself at least ready for a race like that. What made you choose to do a 60-kilometer mountain race in the middle of Colorado?
My friend. And last year I did a race there with him. I did a 22K to see how I will adjust to elevation. It was sure. 1,300, 400, I think, the top of that one. Sure. And I did good. I become a lot slower at the top. I live in Virginia Beach, so I train in flat terrain. So that was hard. Yeah. And then when this year came, he said, well, let's do a longer one now that you do well in elevation. So he picked that race. It was very intimidating because it was 2 mountains to run, and it was hard.
Yeah, it is not an easy profile for anybody who hasn't looked at it. It's not quite as bad as Leadville, but it's very Leadville-esque. It's like these pikes of peaks that you basically just have to clamber your way up. So how was training for that? You and I have been working together for a bit. How did you feel going into the race?
I was very nervous. I didn't think I was gonna make as far as I did.
Sure.
And I never finished the race. To put that out there. I went up through the first mountain, down the first mountain, around a lake, and missed a turn. But I was on target to make it to the first cutoff.
I'm sure you were.
Yeah, that was a relief for me. I didn't even think I was going to get it that far. So I did a lot of treadmill incline training.
Yeah.
Which is sucked at the beginning, but I think half through the training, I was getting better at it. I remember even at grade 6, my heart rate would come out of my chest. And I did most of this training at Incline 12, which is the highest my treadmill. And my heart rate didn't come out of my chest. So I know I was going to get getting better at
it. You got much better at it. We were doing, you started off with intervals of 30, and by the end you were doing intervals of 10 minutes at the worst. And you were doing fantastic. Yeah, it is hard. It's really hard. Now on that note, you said, you were kind of nervous going in, and yet you did it anyway, which is something I really kind of appreciate and respect. What pushed you to, for lack of a better term, do it scared? Why? What gave you the motivation and impetus, or why continue with it even though you weren't quite sure how it was going to go?
Because I'm stubborn.
Love that. Hell yeah.
Somebody do something, I'm gonna go and do it.
It's great. Love that. So, you and I have had some long conversations about confidence and boosting that. What have you found through the past couple months to be really useful as far as getting over these mental hurdles? Because we talked about it a lot, and it's definitely a struggle, and it's the thing I personally struggle with myself in my own competition. What has helped you get past those blocks?
I think the nutrition part, because I never really focus on that. I just pretty much wing it to whatever they have in the education.
Sure.
And I remember you always remind me, if you eat right and you give me the formula, how much I had to eat every hour. That actually helped me a lot. I was sipping like through an IV through my backpack. I have honey and I have goose. So I did half hour one, half hour the other one. And I think that kept my mind busy and it kept me going at the same time. And during training, and you know me, during training, I didn't do a lot of goo and honey. I would do maybe one every hour and every hour and 15 minutes. But that's every time I remember you need to eat, it kind of made me go farther.
That makes sense. I'm glad to hear that was so helpful. Because I mean, it's a thing I really believe in and struggle with myself. And I'm glad that was so helpful for you. Really glad.
Before I forget, I was eating very little. I was hardly eating the calorie intake that I needed just to survive. And you told me I needed to increase at least 500 to 600 more calories a day. And it took me at least a week to get there. And I started performing better. I wasn't getting exhausted. I didn't have to take 3 days rest because I couldn't move because I was so tired. So I think all of that, more food on myself, kind of give me a little bit more confidence.
Good. That's awesome. I mean, you say you didn't have to take 3 days rest. I remember when we first talked, I remember it really vividly. I know where I was. You told me that for years you've been struggling to even get 2 back-to-back runs in. You get hurt. How long had that been going on, and did that get better through this training cycle?
It did get a lot better. I mean, I was able to pretty much work almost every other day or just take 2 days off as a rest day during the week. I mean, I would work 2 days in a row and then I had to take 3 days off because I was exhausted.
Sure. I get that. Yeah, you did great. And if we're looking at, there were some injury things, and a lot of that is coming from short time scales and trying to figure it out. So you had a calf strain and a little bit of Achilles stuff. How are you doing now with all of that?
The calf, I think, is better now. I never had it until when I told you it happened. And I think it might be a lot to do with my Achilles. I have Achilles tendonitis in there, and it flare up once a year. No matter what I'm training for, it always does. And I had to take at least running. This time, I think it was a combination of I twisted it and I kept going with the training instead of just taking off. So now I'm recovering from it. It's getting a lot better. It's been inflamed for a while. And I think just finally now it's kind of getting to the point that it's normal. It doesn't hurt anymore.
Good.
I'm not limping.
I'm really glad. I'm very glad. So what's next for you for the next couple months, and what's coming up on do you have any races you definitely want to do, any of that kind of stuff? What are you looking at?
I might do one late January. One of my friends that she runs with me, but never done an ultra. I think the most she has done is maybe a marathon. I know she's done a couple half. So she got the bug because I do them all the time. She said, okay, I want one. So we might train for one in January.
Awesome.
I'm not training. I told her I'm not going to start training until at least October. I need to make sure that I get a little stronger. I'm going to follow a strength program that you gave me.
Yes, good.
A little more CrossFit from now to October, and then I start training. All the training that I work with you, I think, because we start a little late too.
Yeah, of course.
I did get a little stronger, but I think I get stronger.
Yeah, so, I agree. That's awesome. I'm glad you're taking that cycle.
Yeah. I'm gonna focus on that. I'm gonna run a little bit, so I don't want to lose it. I like running. If I don't run, I get very anxious.
I get that.
Yeah, so I can't wait to run again. I haven't run in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I feel that. I just tweaked my hip today, and I'm not sure what exactly that means. So we'll find out. I feel the anxiety is a real thing. What got you into running in the first place? I mean, I think that ultra running is a crazy sport that I appreciate that people do. So what got you into running these long distances? Why do you feel the like push to do this difficult sport?
I don't know. I remember as a kid, I always liked running. In my high school, I went to a school that was 90% boys and 10% girls. So the boys will run and the girls will do aerobic gymnastics, which I hated it. I was ET, and my teacher had to do this. I don't know, I want to go running. And it was almost the end of the year. I figured out I was not going to do the aerobic little thing with the ribbon, and she sent me running with the boys. I always had liked running.
That's my favorite thing. You've never told me that. I love that so much.
So then I had kids when I was very young. I moved to the state. I'm from Chile, so I moved to the state. I had kids, and I didn't run for years. I did go to the gym. I was always active. I don't know. I had to be active. I can't just sit down. I can't watch a movie unless I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And then I was like in my 30s. I said, okay, I'm going to do an 8K. This is the longest I had run in my life. I was a 100-meter sprinter. I was fast, but I was dead at the end.
Yeah.
And I did 8K in here, very slow because I was afraid that I wasn't going to make it. And then my friend has done it too. And she said, hey, let's do a half marathon. So next year we did a half marathon. After that, we did another half marathon. And then said, oh, let's do a marathon. So we did a marathon. And then we just kept doing marathon and half marathon. And said, you know what? I want to do an ultra. There's one in the local park here. So I did that by myself. And I got hooked. I don't know.
That's awesome. And like, how long ago was that ultra?
I think it was 2011, I want to say.
So you've been doing this for a while. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So awesome. I did that one, and I took a couple of days off, and then one from the group from the gym, we did a 24-hour race. We just did it for fun to see how long we can get. We did like 50 some miles because, you know, it was a loop, and we would take breaks and talk and then go again. And then after that, one of my friends from the gym, she said, hey, I haven't talked to her like in 6 months after that. She called me to say, hey, you want to train for 100K? I said, yes, let's do it. So we did 100K.
Which 100K did you do?
I was in Pennsylvania. It's called Pine Ridge Challenge.
Okay. How was it?
It was flat, which was good.
Yeah, that definitely helps. That's good.
That's awesome. What we wanted to finish. So we took it very easy. It took us forever, but we finished.
Oh, I love that. Well, looking at like all of that, you've been doing this for a bit. It sounds like you've been having a good time. Like, what have you had a coach before?
No.
What made you get one for the Never Summer?
Because I was really afraid of this race.
Fair. It looked really hard. Yeah.
To be honest, I think you did help me a lot mentally and physically. I think mentally I still have blocks on my head that I wasn't going to make. And I think that kind of put me a little back on my training.
Sure.
And to be honest, I know because I was keeping an eye on my watch to make that the first cutoff. I know for sure I was not going to make the second cutoff.
Yeah.
But to get me through just half of it, I was shocked on myself that I could do that. It was very steep.
Yeah, it was very steep. I think you consistently surprise yourself too when you finally get out there. We've seen this in training too, where your paces are often faster than you think they're going to be. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it was a good journey.
I'm glad. If somebody else were like, what was your biggest takeaway from this whole like process training for the 60K?
Consistency. And that's one of the other things I wanted to get a coach, because I knew if I have a plan in front of me, I'm going to follow it. But if I'm going to do my plan and say, oh, I'm tired today, or, my husband was in the hospital for 2 weeks, I just want to go to bed. Mm-hmm. I knew something, I had to follow it. It made me, it's like a commitment. I had to do it,
Yeah, I get that. We were also flexible though. Like with your husband in the hospital, like we dropped a couple and moved them around and made all the shifts, right? Like,
and that took the thought of me having to do that was on you, and I was so grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was happy to be able to take that on for you. It's not a great 2 weeks. I'm really glad that you didn't have to deal with any of that. That's really good.
Yeah, put extra stress in there.
Yeah, nobody needs that in general, much less here. Well,
yeah.
If somebody were thinking about maybe getting a coach, it doesn't have to be me, just kind of a coach in general to support them on that end, what would you say to them?
If it's the first time and they really think about it, yes, I think it's very, very beneficial. For me, at least, it pushed me a little bit more. It was easy to follow a plan than just to wing it. The accountability was there for me. The guesswork, all of that is out of the equation. You just have to go and do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, good, Faby. Anything else you want to say? Anything before we sign off?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very helpful. It's kind of what I expected, but I think it was more than what I expected.
Thank you.
You were very understanding of when I have issues and when I was freaking out.
Of course. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. You're fun to work with. I'd work with you anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, I'm going to log off. Hang out for a sec. We'll chat.
Okay.
Everybody who listened, thank you so much. And we'll be back another time with more of the podcast. Have a good night. Thank you for listening to the show. To be clear, I'm not a doctor nor a registered dietitian, and nothing you heard was medical advice. You should always speak with a qualified medical professional before making any changes to your training regimen. If you enjoy the podcast or found it useful, please take a couple seconds to give it a rating or share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. And if you want more of this information, please head to the Trail and Ultra Running Nutrition group on Facebook. You'll be in good company with other like-minded people who like to do hard stuff outside.